This video is a brief tutorial for developers that want to set up their shortcut file so that its state can be saved and restored by the user. This involves storing your state variables in a specific object in memory. The user can then use the state shortcut file, included in the library, to save and restore the session state. For this tutorial, I've created a sample shortcut file. It includes a reset shortcut, a get shortcut, and a set shortcut. It also includes setup and shutdown scripts. So let's take a look. Okay, the first shortcut is the setup script. It already contains confirmObjectPath. This is a function that's provided by the plugin. Let's just type that in. confirmObjectPath inline scripts state session state sample value and then 0. Okay. The confirmObjectPath lets you confirm that an object within an object chain exists. So in this case, window contains inline scripts, which contains state, which contains session state, which contains sample, which contains value, which is the number 0. So confirmObjectPath checks to see if things are set up the way that they're described here, and if they're not, then it sets them up this way. So if this chain exists, even with different values, like say this value variable holds a value other than 0, then confirmObjectPath does nothing. It only does something if a part of the path is missing. Okay, now let's move on to the shutdown. During shutdown, you want to disconnect from the state system. This isn't strictly necessary, but it's a good idea for efficiency. Okay, and the reset. We have this variable value, and resetting involves setting it back to 0. Okay, now for the getter. Inline scripts. This just returns the value. And finally, the setter. This assigns the value to whatever you pass in, and then lets you know what it was assigned to. So this sample example now has a state with a single value of the value variable. We store the value variable inside of this sample object, which we've named after the shortcut file, to follow a standard for organization. The sample object is put inside the session state object, which is what actually gets saved as the session state, along with its hierarchy, of course. If your shortcut file needed more values in its state, you'd set each value as another variable inside the sample object, alongside this value variable. If your shortcut file's name were, say, items, then you'd replace the sample variable with items here. Okay, with that done, let's go back to features. So it's all set up technically. Let's try it out as a user. So we'll start by checking out the state. I've turned off all the shortcut files except for the state shortcut file that we're using now and the sample shortcut file that we just filled out. So the state string is going to be very small. Now let's use the sample shortcut file a bit. Value starts at 0. Let's set it to the number 3. This time when we call state get, the state is slightly different. Almost the same, except for instead of 0, we have 3. Now I'm going to reset Obsidian. And when we check the state, it's reverted back to the defaults, 0. We've lost the session state that we had before resetting Obsidian. And if we check the sample shortcut file, the values return to defaults as well, back to 0. Luckily, we saved the state by calling the shortcut state get. So we can load this old state back. There are two shortcuts that let us do this. First is state restore, which always loads the last state string stored in the note. Unfortunately, this is not the last state string stored in this note. So we're going to use state set instead, which lets you manually enter the state you want to load. So let's copy that state string and pass it into state set. And now when we call state get, it's restored the session that we had before we restarted Obsidian. And if we check the sample shortcut file, the value is back to 3. In summary, we took a shortcut file and set it up to store its state in such a way that the state can be saved by the user when they use the state shortcut file. We then use the state shortcut file ourselves as a user to see how this all worked together. And that's how you can use the state system provided by the library to save the session state of your shortcut files. And that's about it. Thanks for watching.